What is going on? It is Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we are, of course, doing our 2-round no trades mock draft. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. You guys know how to use YouTube. Below my face is my board. Below that is going to be a ticker running with all the great ways to get connected with the community, as well as take advantage of our 2 sponsors, Olipop as well as UnderDog Fantasy. Links will also be in the description, so feel free to hop in and enjoy, because 2024 is going to be a crazy year. Get on the hype train early. I'm super stoked about all the new types of content that's going to be coming in. Starting off with the number 1 overall selection, I always have one little caveat with these 2-round mock drafts, and that's that I have one trade, right? One trade option. That's it. So bear with me, because I very well might exercise a trade option here. But you know what? We could try to make things a little bit more interesting by having the Bears stay in place as well as the Cardinals. Like, we could do that. You know, let's make it more difficult on myself than I normally do. I usually give myself an out, but not today. Not today. We're going to make it very difficult. It's after Christmas. All the Christmas love and joy is gone. And now we have to focus on what we have to do now, which is no trades. At pick number 1, we have pick 1 and pick 8. That's going to be all in this mock draft. Again, usually I like to trade this pick to be able to get a second round pick back. You know, you guys know the deal. We're not going to do that. So, with the first overall selection, the Bears are down to Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. The question is, which one's going to be your best return on investment? Is it going to be Caleb Williams, who is going to be a quarterback that saves you $50 million a year? Because if we're going to be optimistic and say Justin is him, you know, it kind of makes sense. Maybe that'll be the one trade. We'll have Justin get traded in this one. Let's have a little bit of fun here. The Bears have decided to say, Justin, we want you to go to a franchise that's ready to pay you and is willing to, take the big swing and doesn't have someone like Caleb Williams on the board. So that's going to be our one trade option. We're going to actually trade Justin Fields away right now to a potential contender. I do have a buddy in Cam Marino who is a Falcons insider. Granted, he's, with all insiders, rumors are not always factual, but I do see the Falcons as a team that very much could be in the race for Justin Fields. So that's the team we're going to trade him to. It makes total sense. I think it will probably take a second round pick to get Justin. Like, maybe we'll toss in Justin in a 4th. I doubt it would be a 1st. But the only thing that would actually affect this mock draft would be the number 42 pick. I could literally move it up to here. But for the time being, we're going to allow it just to be a second round pick from the Falcons. Again, don't get butthurt about it. That is probably going to be the value of Justin. Who knows? Maybe it's a future 3rd as well. You could just play around with that idea. There's going to be no more trades in this mock draft. So, again, the Falcons are kind of a quarterback away. I wanted to make sure that they at least got some representation. And the Bears also get their second round pick. So I kind of won in this one in that regards, but Caleb Williams is the number 1 overall selection. Reset the clock. Caleb Williams has very similar strength to Justin Fields. He has a better processor. His processor slips up at times, but so does Justin's. But you now have more time with a player of equal level of talent. And the playmaking ability, it's going to work. So I'm very excited to see what happens there. Cardinals, yes, I exercised my one trade clause for this very reason. I don't like to have to move out with the Cardinals every single time. I think positions that if we were able to move out, because it's obviously going to be Marvin Harrison Jr., but if we were able to move out, looking at right tackle, I think Talisafe Waga or J.C. Latham. I mean, if Amarius Mims declares, which I'm 99.9% sure TBD, he's still not done that because we'd be hearing about it. But essentially, this is going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. There's no player within remote proximity of being as valuable as Marvin to the Cardinals if there is no trade back option here. So Marvin Harrison Jr., a lot of people say Malik Neighbors is as good as him. He's getting a re-eval in the coming week or so. Things are going crazy. So, we're going to be definitely getting that re-eval in. But we've already gotten most of the other LSU guys re-evaluated. Now I wanted to save the best for last on that team. At pick number 3, so we saw Drake May end up, he's been extremely, extremely talented, but extremely inconsistent at the same time. We've seen a lot of ups and downs. Commanders should be looking for a quarterback. Unfortunately, it's not that I've lost faith in Sam Howell as a potential quarterback, but naturally, Washington's probably going to clean house. Sam's lost his confidence. I mean, you could see it in his eyes. His offensive line's ass, but you still have 2 other picks in this mock draft, which I doubt I'll allow any tackles to get there. But that's beside the point. Ultimately, the Commanders need to go after a quarterback because it's a realistic thing to do. And I think Sam Howell should be shipped somewhere else. We're not going to do that in this mock draft again for the reason I just said, the one trade clauses to make it at least viable for teams to do what they're going to do. But the Commanders are going to end up going after a quarterback here. We're not going to go back to North Carolina. We're going to go Jaden Daniels here. He's going to be the QB2 off the board. Some people think that Drake May will be the first quarterback off the board. I say, how about no? Jaden Daniels, to me, is better than Drake May. Now, they have different skill sets entirely, and it really depends on the offensive coordinator there for Washington. I would have loved them to get Caleb Williams. Didn't happen in this case. But Jaden Daniels is still such a phenomenal prospect. Great athlete. He's actually really accurate as well. Needs to get better with his progressions, but I could say that pretty much about every quarterback in this class. But of course, Drake May will end up being the selection for the New England Patriots. So just a quick recap for those of I have a select group of fans who do have some visual issues. So they do rely on the auditory side of things. The Bears went Caleb at 1. The Cardinals went Marvin at 2. Commanders, Jaden Daniels at 3. And then Patriots, Drake May at 4. So at pick number 5, the Giants are just chilling. They should be in range of a quarterback. Unfortunately, they got kind of shellacked because they're pretty much is a top 3. I'm going to have to reevaluate Bo Nix again. I'm not a huge fan, honestly, of Bo Nix or Drake May. I just put him there for positional value. The only quarterbacks I'm actually quite a fan of are Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. Which is a big surprise, but it is what it is. I think the Giants should be looking for the best return on investment. To me, that could be Brock Bowers because you can use him everywhere, but Malik Neighbors is a super freak. It's hard to say no, and there's not many guys in this class that will actually have that high level attribute, and I just don't think they'll have that ability that Malik Neighbors does. He's improved over the past year, absolutely, undoubtedly. So big fan of Malik Neighbors, and he would be a really good New York Football Giant. At pick number 6, kind of stole him there from the Los Angeles Chargers, RIP to that. But I do think going after an offensive tackle or Brock Bowers is going to be a pretty nice consolation prize. I think I might be able to get a solid right tackle in round 2. I will not get a solid weapon in round 2 in terms of the equal in terms of value. I'm not going to get the quality of a Brock Bowers the way I could get something remotely close to the value of a Tulise Fuaga because you don't need to take a left tackle, move him to right. So we're going to go Brock Bowers here out of Georgia. We need to get weapons for Herbert, and Brock Bowers is going to be a great start to that. At pick number 7 for the Tennessee Titans, they're chilling. They get to choose whoever the hell they want. And this is as good as a selection as you can ask for Tennessee. I don't know. Y'all need to check me on this. Is this a new font, by the way, for the teams? It definitely feels like they changed the font, and it's kind of bothering me because it doesn't look like any of the other fonts. And I did take a graphic design class. Just going to say, deep down inside, I feel like I'm getting yelled at by my professor for having it like that. It just does not look good, my friends, because it used to look really good. Like maybe we could get this type of font back over here. That's not the topic that we need to go on right now. However, just a little nitpick right there for the PFF guys who will not be watching this video, but that's okay. We love them anyways. But it's Olu Fashanu or Joe Alt. Do you want to play the long-term game or the short-term? Both of them, phenomenal players. I'm going to go with Olu because I think they have time to develop. They don't just need one left tackle and they're solved. And you have a high-level potential, former left tackle there in Peter Skoronski to help Olu with the little finite details of the game. So big fan of that, Olu Fashanu ending up going to the Tennessee Titans. At pick number 8, the Chicago Bears are back. We got Caleb Williams, and at this selection, there's a couple positions I'd like to go. There is that wide receiver route, and I'm not really a huge fan of the options on the board because Malik Neighbors is not here. I think that would be a very viable option at pick 8 because I think he could pair very well with DJ Moore. But looking at the other options, I still think left tackle, Braxton, he's not necessarily the best tackle on planet Earth. And for me, I've always been of the mindset where you solidify the offensive line before you do anything else. To be fair, Braxton's still pretty damn solid, right? So it's not like he's any form of butt cheeks or anything like that. You could go Johnny Newton here and get a guy right down the road there at University of Illinois and bring him in. You could. And he's a super talented player. But with two guys in Zach Pickens as well as Gervin Dex that you drafted in the top 64 picks last year, I think that I'd prefer to let those guys develop into their roles and maybe get someone to complement them later on rather than have another alpha on the defensive interior. This Bears defense is phenomenal. Right now, I want to solve the offensive issues, and I don't think you're going to get someone close to the talent of Joe Alt. Braxton can move anywhere across the offensive line. I'll be very happy to see him do that. And like having Joe Alt pair up with Tevin Jenkins on the same side, that would just be nasty. I would love to see that. At pick number 9, the New York Jets get absolutely shellacked in terms of my favorite tackles for them. But there's a lot of good players who are still here. Now, they did try to acquire Fletcher Cox in the offseason. They could end up being in the mood for someone like Jerzon Newton too. That's a dark horse pick. Very dark horse, but still a pick that is potential. I think wide receiver is an underrated position to target because they don't have a second round pick. This is a great spot in a trades mock draft to actually move back. Offensive tackle, though, again, I'm hammering this. Offensive line's the place they need to go. I will have Amarius Mims return in this one until he declares he will be returning. That's a show rule. So it'll be in the description as well, but I'll continue bringing it up. At pick number 9, I'm going to have the Jets go Talise Fuaga. He's going to help out in the run game. Breece Hall has kind of been their MVP and might as well make his job a lot easier. Talise Fuaga, star tackle out of Oregon State. Pick number 10, the Falcons traded their second round pick for Justin Fields. Want to clarify that for my Falcons fans saying, where the hell is pick 42? It is now with Chicago. You ended up sending that as well as a future third and got a fourth and Justin Fields back. You can, again, do your negotiating. There's only one pick that actually is in effect in this mock draft, but we're going to be going after wide receiver most likely for the Atlanta Falcons. Edge rusher is the best value, but I think that with one wide receiver left on your team, scheduled to be left, not re-signed yet, on your team, and Drake London, there's a massive need for a wide receiver. Rome Odunze would be a very nice compliment. Again, whenever I see someone who will play through a punctured lung and a broken rib and still end up being a top 10 graded receiver on my board, I gotta give him props, man. That is major respect that I gotta owe Rome Odunze. Great size as well. He will be an elite compliment. Big fan of what he can bring there in ATL with Justin Fields. At pick number 11 for the New Orleans Saints, I'm looking at Jerzon Newton here, and I really like the option. Yeah, I remember a lot of you Saints fans have been giving me some comments about how your organization's a big fan of Derek Carr. The coaching. You guys can again clarify it. I'm forgetting it off the top of my head because I'm still recovering from Christmas, so y'all know what's good. But essentially, you guys have summarized that the coaching is fully in support of Derek Carr. They have been for a while, and they're not going to select a quarterback round 1, which makes my job more interesting because I have someone, Jerzon Newton here, based on the defensive interiors. You have valued them in the first round. You got Brian Breezy last year, and I think that edge rusher is a little bit overrated of a need on your team because you have Passignon on that team and Granderson as well. Both those guys are on contract until 2026, and those guys are really good players, very underrated. So I'm going to go after defensive interior here in Jerzon Johnny Newton. He's just so talented, and I think he'd be a really good compliment to Brian Breezy. He's a little bit undersized, but the block shedding ability and just the speed to power is something to be really marveled by. He's one of my blue chip players in the class. A lot of respect there. At pick number 12 for the Green Bay Packers, we are going to be going J.C. Latham here. Again, Amarius Mims will be returning in this. We're going to go J.C. Latham, though, and kick him to left tackle or kick Zach Tom to left tackle, whoever looks a lot more comfortable at that position. I know that the Packers are great at sniping dudes down the board. I get that. And corners may be the more likely position. Cooper DeJean could be a safety / returner convert. Like, you could certainly get some good value there. But when I see the value of JC Latham at pick 12, granted he's spot 20 on my board, but the drop off from him to the next tackle is extraordinary without Amarius Mims being in play here. So you're getting unbelievable value at pick 12 at a position of very high need on a team with not many issues. Like for me, I can get a really good corner and a really good safety in the next round. So that is my thought process. Maybe Green Bay won't share that same thought process because they rarely do. But I think it's good to at least have some hope that they'll do the right thing. At pick number 13 for the Las Vegas Raiders, congrats on getting 2 defensive touchdowns and absolutely shellacking the Chiefs in that regard. The offense still is extremely lackluster. And looking at the quarterbacks available, you could wait till round 2 and end up trying to snipe one. I actually might try to push the quarterbacks down the board in this one because I always take quarterback as early as possible. Because Bo Nix probably will be taken probably by pick 15 with the Vikings. So, there is certainly going to be a small run on quarterback or at least a dilution of the value of quarterback. So by next round, you're going to be lucky if you get JJ McCarthy or Joe Milton. I think that might be worth rolling the dice for when you can get a superstar defensive back in Kool-Aid McKinstry, because I know that with that Jack Jones pick 6, that's awesome. We still don't have a bona fide corner 1 in my eyes. And that's where I look at Kool-Aid McKinstry and say, this guy is consistent, great size. I like Terrion Arnold more, but Kool-Aid McKinstry's been the corner 1 there. Like, we're talking about him being up against the best of the best consistently. So I'm going to go after a Kool-Aid McKinstry here. I don't see a defensive interior worth drafting, but this is just proper value. At pick number 14 for the Denver Broncos, I do see Russell Wilson potentially being on the way out. You could see a quarterback on the way in. However, the wide receiver core needs help. They do. Just plainly put, they need help. Courtland Sutton's the only dude who's probably going to be reliably there for next year. And, I mean, you can talk about Jerry Jeudy, but there's always been rumors over his tenure in Denver there. So I'm looking at Emeka Egbuka. Prospect fatigue. Keon Coleman and Emeka Egbuka. I'm telling you, this is just pure prospect fatigue. Keon Coleman was never able to separate with his route running. I'll try to look up one highlight of him that when people were going crazy about him, just show me one highlight where he was the one running a route that broke a dude's ankles. Zero. Zilch. Nada. People all of a sudden are just getting bored because he's not making a super jump catch every single week, or he's not hurdling a guy after the catch every single week. That doesn't change the player you fell in love with. It just means that you got bored with the fact that he's not being extremely explosive and on ESPN top 10 every single week. So he's a beast. I think his role would not complement Courtland Sutton well enough. I think it would be a little bit conflicting. It would be the exact same. Emeka Egbuka, again, prospect fatigue. This guy is just consistent, solid all around. He had an ass quarterback this year. The Ohio State Buckeyes were not necessarily that great. They performed well enough, but, again, with a pretty buns quarterback, you're not going to be as efficient or statistically as good as maybe you should be. So, Emeka Egbuka, again, talented player, can play in the slot, can play on the boundary, great size as well, great after the catch. There's nothing wrong with Emeka. There really isn't. So, I don't know why there's any hate on him. Mecca very well with a reevaluation might jump Johnny Wilson. Johnny's been slipping a little bit. I'm a big fan of Johnny Wilson, but again, I've started watching a little bit more tape, and after the injuries and such, he does sometimes look a little bit slower than the guy I fell in love with. So rather than him being 4.5 to 4.55, he looks like 4.55 to 4.6. That's why you just start seeing you can knock a point off here, a point off there. At pick number 15 for the Minnesota Vikings. This is going to be Bo Nix. I know that y'all absolutely detest Bo Nix to the Vikings, but if you bring back Kirk Cousins, then we could start talking about other positions. But right now, there's an actual potential starting quarterback on the board. You got to take a shot at that. We don't want the astronaut to be on this team anymore. We don't want Nick Mullins to lead this team anymore. Bo Nix actually could. And I'm very excited to see what he can do, because I think Jordan Addison might have a similar effect as Troy Franklin did there at Oregon for Bo. It's a little bit smaller, but I think Bo Nix could really use Jordan Addison to his maximum capabilities. At pick 16 for the Arizona Cardinals, we went after Marvin Harrison Jr. earlier on. At this selection, defensive interior, edge rusher, corner, anything defense, that's probably the best way to go. Offensive tackle, again, Amarius Mims is not going to be coming out in this. I do believe if he were, I'd probably take him for the Raiders. Like, that's how early he would go. So, again, keep that in mind. So, the way I want to rock this, because I think there's going to be some good corners there in round 2. I got pick 34. I'd be very happy with a corner in round number 2. Looking at the best return on investment, I mean, again, I want to go defensive interior there in round number 2. That's a toughie. That is a toughie because I could get a top-tier corner and probably a top-tier defensive interior with that pick. I think that's the best way to go. I think it is. I love Terrion Arnold. That's the guy who I usually go with. But I do think Nate Wiggins actually feels more, in my mind, like an Eagle, which is related to Gannon. So, again, I was thinking of Steichen. I was like, but yeah, Jonathan Gannon, I feel like he would fit a little bit better. And you're not going to get the same quality of corner as Nate Wiggins in round number 2. I want to change things up a little bit. We'll get Nate Wiggins there. So we're getting a wide receiver and a corner, both top of their class. At pick 17 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I do think a quarterback potentially is in order here with Michael Penix Jr. We're seeing with Mason Rudolph that there's something there. But I think I'll wait till round number 2 for Joe Milton because that's just the guy who I would love to rock. Looking at other positions to target, I think corner's the right way to go. Again, Amari Smith is not coming out in this. Otherwise, he would be the very quick, obvious selection for me. The best value is probably going to be with Terrion Arnold. I do think a strong safety is a very underrated position to target. Kalen King is one that I love for the storyline of him paired back up with Joey Porter Jr. But Terrion Arnold is the guy who I just think is the best player available. Based on my board, Dallas Turner and Braylon Trice are, but not for this team. The next one would be Terrion Arnold, who I, again, extremely huge fan of. Steelers, we have a lot of issues, and I think we just need to hit with the best player available at those positions. And luckily, we actually have it there with Terrion Arnold, a cornerback out of Alabama. I literally have comped him to miniature JPJ, which would be kind of great to have him be the understudy of JPJ. At pick number 18 for the Bengals, apparently Jonah Williams might be brought back, which would be pretty intriguing. So I used to go offensive tackle for y'all. Trying to change it up a little bit. I do think defensive interior is a very underrated position to target. DJ Reader, if I'm not mistaken, got hurt. And that is a big, big ouch. Like a big oof. So looking at it, we could wait till the next round, right? And there probably will be Rukaroro there. And I think that'd be a good move. That definitely is a position I want to go after. I don't think edge rusher is the right position to go after, nor is it really corner. Like, this team is actually really solid. I could go Graham Barton just for the versatility across the whole line, and that might be the best option available, and then could have that longer-term play there for, that right tackle spot. So, for me, I love the idea of getting Graham Barton on this team and, potentially freeing up some extra cap from the interior of the offensive line, but also have a guy who can fill in case of injury on the exterior of the offensive line at those tackle spots. At pick number 19, we're seeing the edge rushers fall, but it's just because it's hard to take them when there's very limited options for some other teams. Pick number 19, though, Buccaneers are looking to bring back Baker Mayfield. I love to see it. Could certainly get a new era in here with Keon Coleman over Mike Evans. And that probably will be the way I go. Let's go Keon Coleman out of Florida State. Would have loved for him to pair up with Michael Pittman Jr., but that is not the case. At pick number 20, I'm looking at Cooper DeJean here, and I'm just saying I love that versatility. Edge rusher, I don't think is as big of an issue as people like to say, but it is the best player available. You do have Braylon Trice and Dallas Turner. Cooper DeJean, though, around there, Iowa, obviously close to Indiana, so he's used to playing up there in the elements if he has to go and play some teams up there, and he's just super versatile. I would personally want him on my team. And it's just a guy. He's just that type of guy that you really want on your team. Good returner as well. We're going to go Cooper DeJean. At pick number 21 for the Seattle Seahawks, I think that you just have to go best player available. You can't let Jared Verse fall any further. It is what it is. At pick number 22, yes, I do have Jared Verse for my edge 3, but that doesn't really change anything. I think they're all phenomenal. But at pick number 22 for the Jacksonville Jaguars, wide receiver, interior offensive line, defensive back, edge rusher. That's the way you rock. Xavier Legette's a dude who I would love to pick up for this team, but I've done it so many times. I actually want to get a true edge rusher on this squad who's super smart, can go out into coverage. I love the versatility that Dallas Turner brings to the team. It's essentially going to be your replacement for Kayvon Chason. Now you're going to have unbelievable talent across that whole D line, as you kind of already had, but Dallas Turner, just the value is too good. And we're going to see a quick run on edge rushers here. The Rams are sitting, and they could end up taking a quarterback like Michael Penix, but I think the Rams would rather bring in a guy like Kirk Cousins, for example, to, have a one little last hurrah than, go after a quarterback at this point. So I'm looking at Chop Robinson and Braylon Trice. Braylon Trice is just 274. That's just where it comes down to. He's 274. I think he had 70 pressures on the year too. This dude's an absolute freak. I'm going to go Braylon Trice for the Los Angeles Rams. Again, Amarius Mims is returning in this. At pick number 24, we have the Buffalo Bills. Wide receiver, most likely the best option. Could go a swing tackle here actually as well, because it's hard to say no to Xavier Legette. It is very hard to say no. But at the same time, again, Amarius Mims returning in this. We could get Kingsley Sua-Mataea, and I would really like that. So we're going to go after the swing tackle out of BYU, Kingsley Sua-Mataea, former Oregon offensive tackle. At pick number 25 for the Kansas City Chiefs, this is going to be Jordan Morgan. Offensive tackle, they need it. They do. The tackles have been crumbling. Wanya Morris can kick to right tackle if he needs to, but I think defensive interior and tackle have now become the pressing issues. I like to go wide receiver for this team, but let's change it up. I saw it in a mock draft earlier this week, so feel free to check that out as well. But I really like the idea of addressing offensive line. At pick number 26 for the Dallas Cowboys, would have loved Jordan Morgan to be there. Amarius Mims returning. I don't see there being a really good option on the board. So I don't think I announced it properly. The Buffalo Bills selected Kingsley Sua-Mataea, and the Kansas City Chiefs chose Jordan Morgan. But at pick number 26 for the Cowboys, we could opt for interior offensive line. I don't like that idea at this point. We could go defensive interior and just add absolute monstrosity to Vondre Sweat. That'd be pretty fun. Or we can usher in a new era of edge rusher here with Chop Robinson out of Penn State. Leatu Latu as well. Phenomenal. I mean, you can't go wrong. You really can't go wrong. Leatu Latu, he's 10 pounds heavier than Chop. He has more production than Chop, but he doesn't have as much upside. He also is not as powerful as Chop when Chop goes full speed. So I think I really want to lean towards a Chop Robinson pick here. I haven't done it in a while, but I really like ushering in a new era and letting Micah coach up Chop to be the future at the edge position with Micah and have two elite Penn State edge rushers. At pick number 27 for the Houston Texans, I think that we could actually rock with a wide receiver here. Xavier Legette is just a different type of beast that at 6'3", 227 pounds should not be trifled with. I mean, this guy is an absolute freak show. He essentially, to me, is a bigger, but maybe a little bit less refined Malik Neighbors. And I was thinking about taking him here at 19, at 20. Like, he would be in consideration for me at that point. So I think this would be actually a really unique position because he also has played tight end. So you can kick him into tight end for some certain reps. And I think that'd be really fun to see. Let's go Xavier Legette out of South Carolina there for the Houston Texans. At pick number 28 for the Detroit Lions, this is a pretty obvious one. It's going to be Leatu Latu. I don't really care who else is on the board. I think getting extra edge rush help for this team is paramount. You could obviously opt for some corners there, but there's good corners there in round 2 compared to the value of a Latu here in round number 1. Just a super talented edge rusher to complement what you have there in Aiden Hutchinson. At pick number 29 for the Miami Dolphins, again, Amarius Mims is returning in this. I do not see anybody who I think would be valuable enough on the offensive line to be able to I mean, maybe Jackson Powers-Johnson could be a sneaky option for the Dolphins at this point. But looking at other options that we could try to target, I mean, there's not much this team needs. I do think Jackson Powers-Johnson could be accelerated into this range with a very good combine. And I haven't shown this guy enough respect. I think I saw Brosmo actually go after him or Graham Barton at this point. So we're going to go Jackson Powers-Johnson. We're going to throw a curveball because I haven't done that in a hot minute. We're throwing a curveball here with Jackson Powers-Johnson, center out of Oregon, since Connor Williams tore his ACL and will be bye-bye. At pick number 30 for the Philadelphia Eagles, the options for me are going to be after an edge rusher or probably a corner. Looking at, well, you could look at wide receiver as well for a wide receiver 3. Jermaine Burton, I love that. Troy Franklin, I love that. I just don't think that the value is right at pick 30. I think the best option actually on the board is JT Tuimoloau. I mean, he really could be ushering in that new era. You could go Tyler Guyton and trade him up for one more year. I don't even know if Lane will be here after this year. If you guys don't actually have some good momentum, he might be here for a year longer, but ultimately his best friend in Jason Kelce will be gone. Amarius Mims would be the best selection. He is not coming out in this mock draft. So I just got to put that there. I'm going to look at a corner. And you could go Kamari Lassiter here. I think that James Bradberry could be released and just kick the fuck out because he's not good. He's not. And you have Eli Ricks that you can put in the slot. You have Keely Ringo that you can put on the boundary. And I think Kamari Lassiter is that type of guy who I want to learn for 1 year from Big Play Slay. And I want to start pushing these corners up a bit higher to where they're actually being selected. I'm not getting a first-round quality corner in round number 2. I think the Eagles would be remiss to not go after another Georgia corner who's going to be running the 4-3s, if not 4-2s, in Kamari Lassiter. He stepped his game up. He's improving. Ultimately, the only issue with Kamari was the fact that, he needed to become better in terms of his instincts, but his athleticism has always been there. And when you have great mentorship, that could bring out those traits. At pick number 31 for the San Francisco 49ers, offensive line has been absolutely brutal. I mean, injuries especially, unfortunately, has been, the tail of the tape. But I'm going to go Tyler Guyton here for the Niners. I think offensive line is now more of a need than corner. Just that's pretty much what it came down to, what lost you all the game. Well, 4 interceptions did too, but that's a topic for another day. Again, Amarius Mims returning in this, so San Francisco goes Tyler Guyton. At pick number 32 for the Baltimore Ravens, again, Amarius Mims not coming out in this one. I will probably look at corner. I mean, this team doesn't need very much. I do think offensive line is very underrated. You could end up going Troy Fautanu and seeing if he ends up as a guard. I mean, I think you could test out to see if he will be a tackle. He could. I mean, he does have the length for it. The question is, will he be consistent enough? Of course, he will be a really good run blocker. So we'll try it out. I like Troy Fautanu. A tackle/guard out of Washington going to the Ravens. At pick number 33 for the Carolina Panthers, Bryce Young has actually been 5th in quarterback grade over the past 2 weeks. So good to see Bryce start to get a little bit more comfortable. Let's make his life even more comfortable. Let's get him a wide receiver. I like Troy Franklin here a lot. Jermaine Burton's a better build and has that instant chemistry. You could try to look into that, but it's hard to say that a team would draft that chemistry over trying to just build chemistry with a better player in their eyes. I have Troy Franklin, very similar grade-wise to Jermaine Burton. Hey, they're pretty much neck and neck. Pick number 34 for the Arizona Cardinals. So actually, a quick little more explanation as to why I just went Troy Franklin, because I just said the better player. Better player in terms of everybody, the consensus eyes, is definitely Troy Franklin. I've been a big fan of Jermaine Burton all year, but Troy Franklin has been consistently looked at as a superior product, hence why I chose him, because I think that Bryce Young can still make Troy Franklin work just as well. But at pick number 34, we're back with the Arizona Cardinals. This is Tavondre Sweat. If he's here, we're taking him. I mean, this team needs defensive interior help. We have now gotten after Nate Wiggins, Tavondre Sweat, as well as Marvin Harrison. 3 big game changers on both sides of the ball. At pick 35, the Washington Commanders are going to be selecting JT Tuimoloau. I mean, there's not much of a thought process that really needs to go into that unless a tackle is here, and I'm not having Amarius Mims come out in this. So, I mean, this is just pretty straightforward. I might as well start building up that defense because they're starting to get carved apart. At pick number 36, the New England Patriots are back. Could go Devontae Walker for this team to end up pairing with Drake May. Just to give some credit to Trevor Sikkema, who I think he is the one who's, curating this whole entire positional rankings. I think this is his. So could end up getting Tez Walker here if the NFL teams really like him. This is a randomly high meteoric jump from essentially like the 150 range into 22. I don't feel like this team needs much more. So we'll get that instant chemistry there. Drake May pairs back up with Devontae Walker there in New England. At pick 37, the New York Giants are sitting on the board, and they're lucky. They're chilling because ended up getting Malik Neighbors in round 1. I think defensive interior is a very underrated position since, Leonard Williams left. I think you could get someone like Chris Jenkins here. Very good value for a player who is a gap penetrator, very good run stuffer, very underrated. Now, you could look at some extra offensive linemen here. I think Christian Haynes, I want to push him up the board as well because he's starting to get a little bit more hype as well. Might be the guy who I choose here. You know what? I want to give credit. I mean, Christian Haynes is my number 12 player in the class. Let's give him some credit here. Let's get some extra help on the interior of the offensive line and help out that run game. Christian Haynes out of Connecticut going to New York. At pick number 38 for the Los Angeles Chargers, we went Brock Bowers in round number 1. Again, Amarius Mims not coming out in this. So here in round number 2, I think going after a corner is the best thing to do. And a corner 2 is what you need. And Kalen King is an elite level corner 2. Should not be here on the board, but he is. My number 14 player in the class is now gone. At pick number 39 for the Tennessee Titans, we ended up drafting Olu Fashanu in round number 1. But with the 39th overall pick, the Tennessee Titans could be looking at that wide receiver room. Jermaine Burton could be a really nice deep threat for y'all. Johnny Wilson actually, I think, would be the best option. Now, he is still a phenomenal wide receiver. I don't know why people hate him so much. I don't. He has drop issues. He has the same drop rate as Troy Franklin. Just saying. And he, 4 out of, I think, his 6 drops on the year came in his first game back after a long period without football. So it was week 1 and then the week right after his injury. Just saying. But I mean, the guy just needs to get warmed up. And after that, this dude he's pretty damn rock solid. So I'm actually going to take Johnny Wilson here because worst case scenario, he's going to upgrade the tight end room. And best case scenario at 6'7", 240, he's going to be an absolute beast for Will Levis to target. So walking out of this with Johnny Wilson as well as Olu Fashanu, the Titans are going to prosper. At pick number 40 for the Washington Commanders, we've gone after JT Tumalau as well as Jaden Daniels. At pick number 40, I think a linebacker is certainly in play. Just getting somebody who is extremely consistent and very talented like Junior Colson or Edrin Cooper might be what really could make the difference. But I think Peyton Wilson really feels like a Commander, and that would be a pick I would make in round number 3 due to injury history. So looking at the next best option for this team could be corner. It really could be corner. But I am actually going to opt for tight end. The Washington Commanders will be drafting Jatavian Sanders. I'm trying to push him a little bit more up the board because the tight ends so far have not been extremely overwhelming. But I'm very excited when I dig into more and more tight ends to find one of those guys who ends up being one of my favorites. But at pick number 41 for the Green Bay Packers, of course, the safeties are still on the board because that's just naturally what happens. I know that I will be taking a minimum of 1 before our next pick. Where is that next pick? Oh, just kidding. I didn't realize it was that close. We'll not be taking a safety within the next couple of picks. So when projecting forward, we've already drafted J.C. Latham, tackle out of Alabama. I think going after a corner is the right way to go. When you got Denzel Burke on the board, who's an absolute freak show, also pretty much just across the lake there in Ohio. It's a little bit farther than that. But Denzel Burke is just such a phenomenal player. This team could use some extra help there with Eric Stokes as well as Jair. So Denzel Burke is going to be a massive addition for the Green Bay Packers. The Chicago Bears are now taking this pick for Atlanta at pick number 42 for this Justin Fields trade. So far, the Chicago Bears have drafted Caleb Williams as well, if I'm not mistaken, as Joe Alt. So we've fixed the offense at this point. Would have been very excited to fix the defense a little bit. I think Chris Braswell certainly is at least in contention for this pick, but I mean, I'm gonna see if there's any really good centers that I really like. I mean, there's one in Cedric Van Pran that I think could be a very solid addition, as well as Bo Limmer, but that feels like a third round thing. And at this point, I was saying we don't need to pick an alpha. Let's go after my defensive interior number 2, and that's Chris Jenkins. Getting an absolute run stuffer who is also really close to Chicago is going to be a massive help. And again, Gervin Dexter's been super solid, flexing out to an edge rushing position as well. I would love to continue allowing him to go wherever he wants on the D line and just having Chris Jenkins be a super solid run stuffing defensive interior with pass rush upside. At pick number 43 for the Philadelphia Eagles, still seeing some really good quarterbacks on the board. I mean, I'm not saying for the Philadelphia Eagles, but doing a quick little recap, we still got Michael Penix, who could fall for injury concerns. Like, this is very possible. A lot of people have talked about how Michael Penix might be falling. Same thing with JJ, who might end up returning, as well as Joe Milton. So, got to throw all of that out there. But the Eagles drafted a corner in Kamari Lassiter in round number 1. I think in round number 2, they'd probably want to balance it out with an offensive position. Brian Thomas has that deep threat ability, and he has that size that could be really coveted in this offense. So I think the value is right for Howie to pull the trigger on Brian Thomas, who is 6'4", 205 pounds. At pick number 44, the Green Bay Packers select the first safety off the board in Tyler Nubin. So they've gotten their star corner, star safety, as well as star tackle all in one. Could go after a running back in the next round. At pick number 45, the Vegas Raiders did the right thing and waited. Now, the question is, do you want Michael Penix, do you want J.J. McCarthy, or do you want Joe Milton? I want J.J. McCarthy. I want the higher upside player who has less injury concerns. Michael Penix has had multiple season-ending injuries. I'm so happy that he has not gotten hurt again, and that's why he's here. I mean, that's why we are even considering him in this range. I do have him listed right here at 62, right next to J.J. McCarthy. I think they both have their respective strengths and weaknesses. J.J. McCarthy has more upside, and I would love to see how he performs with these super high-level receivers. So J.J. McCarthy will be the selection for the Raiders. The Raiders have now drafted Kool-Aid McKinstry as well as J.J. McCarthy. At pick number 46, the New Orleans Saints are back. They drafted a superstar in round number 1 in Jerzon Johnny Newton. This might be where you take a player like Michael Penix. And I think this is adequate. We're going to be going Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington. I know I was talking about how they don't want to move off Derek Carr, but when the value is right, the value is right. At pick number 47, the Minnesota Vikings drafted a quarterback in round number 1 in Bo Nix. Now here in round number 2, could totally see them going after Chris Braswell. I think the value is proper, and then you bring back Danielle Hunter. That's just the best way that you could, address the team. You could have, of course, went after, superstar edge rusher then, and maybe got Michael Penix to fall here, but I didn't know. Honestly, deep down, I had no idea that Michael Penix would still be on the board at this point, so it was a big risk for a team that really needs QB help. At pick number 48, the Houston Texans are sitting here, and did I take Xavier Legette? I did. So the Texans have gone after Xavier Legette. The next position to target is the defensive interior. Leonard Taylor is here, and the pure upside of somebody who could be arguably the best player on the field at pick number 48 is ridiculous. He added some weight. He was already out of shape last year, and he got even more out of shape this year. I want to see him return to his old self because when he is really going, it is hard to find someone better. It is really hard to find someone better. At pick number 49, the Pittsburgh Steelers went after a corner in Terrion Arnold in round number 1. And with this selection, the Steelers should be looking at QB. They really should. And they should be looking at center. They should also be looking at linebacker. And that's pretty much it. We could go after a linebacker at this spot, but there's so many good linebackers for us to target in the next rounds that I feel fairly confident. I do love the idea of going after a quarterback here. It's pretty obvious since I haven't talked about any of these quarterbacks here. Okay, hello. Yeah, since I haven't talked about Shadur, Carson. Well, Carson's already returned. But Quinn probably returning. Shadur most likely returning. Michael Pratt will be coming out. But it's like Michael Pratt, Spencer Rattler, Joe Milton. I really do believe in Joe Milton for the squad. I think I've taken him a couple 2 weeks too many in a row. But that's the player who I really want to go at this spot. I will actually end up addressing interior offensive line here with a center in Cedric Van Pran, who will have instant chemistry with our tackle Broderick Jones. At pick number 50 for the Cincinnati Bengals, I talked about it in the first round, but Ruka Roroho was my target, and he is the one who is still available. Instant chemistry as well with their first round pick in Myles Murphy, so the Bengals go after Ruka Roroho. At pick number 51, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are back on the board. They ended up drafting the new era of wide receiver in Keon Coleman. I think this team's just in the right spot to start addressing BPA. And, you got Cam Kitchens here. Hard to kind of pass on a player like that. I mean, it is a pretty good position to target. But we could also look at interior offensive line here, seeing if there's any tackles. Again, Amarius Mims is returning. I don't really see anybody who gets me out of bed in the morning except maybe Bo Limmer. I'm a big fan of Bo, but I doubt that he'd be taken here. We're going to go after the best linebacker on the board. I think just continuing to bolster your strengths with younger prospects who could eventually develop and just step into the veteran shoes is the best way possible. And I'm going after my number one linebacker in the class, Junior Colson out of Michigan. At pick number 52 for the Indianapolis Colts, we ended up going after, I totally forgot, Cooper DeJean in round number 1. Wide receiver is still a position I really want to target. I would love A.D. Mitchell to pair up with Michael Pittman Jr. I think that would be phenomenal. And I know that a lot of y'all have been actually saying, I can't wait to see A.D. Mitchell in a Colts uniform. I think that would be phenomenal. Just really solid enough frame at 6'4", 196. You can get it up to 200. And he's super fluid as an athlete, great after the catch. Just hasn't been reliable enough year over year in order to be considered a bona fide first-round prospect. At pick number 53, we're back with the New York Football Giants. And at this point, I might want to go BPA. I do like the idea of going after safety with Cam Kitchens here, though. I don't think they need it desperately, but that's usually when the best time to select it is. I just think Cam Kitchens could be a home run hit on this team. I could go defensive line for sure. There are still some really talented players. Could go corner. You could even get even more wide receiver help for this team. There's a lot of routes that you can go. But I'm just going to go BPA because when in doubt, get the best player. Just do it. Again, Amarius Mims returning in this. At pick number 54 for the Jacksonville Jaguars, we ended up targeting an edge rusher in Dallas Turner in round number 1, which is a big shock even to myself. Looking at the offensive linemen still available because I love getting bulky and athletic interior. I'd be waiting for Bo Limmer or Donovan Jackson in the next round. So with that, I think going after another wide receiver could be in the works here. I really like Jermaine Burton. He could end up being a little too, I would say a little too similar to what we already have in Christian Kirk, but wouldn't be a bad option. I think Jalen Polk at his 6'2", 204-pound frame fits a little bit more of the future wide receiver 1 build that this team should be trying to gun for. At pick number 55, the Los Angeles Rams were, very blessed to see Braylon Trice fall into their lap. My number 5 player in the class. Big fan of him. So the Rams are back on the board, and I really like the idea of TJ Tampa at this spot. You just naturally get a high upside corner who's been super consistent over his entire career. I think that's one of the best ways the Rams can continue to improve, and just being able to rely on your defensive backs is exactly how this team won a Super Bowl. Their defensive backs were also able to hold off while Aaron Donald was able to absolutely wreck house. So, with the lack of defensive interior talent left on the board that can compete with TJ Tampa, I'm going to go after that secondary route. At pick number 56 for the Buffalo Bills, I think that the right option to go would be Kalen Bullock. I don't think he's announced whether he's coming out or not. Could be someone who returns, but I've seen a lot of defensive players being brought to USC. I doubt that he'd want to stick around when we're in such a weak safety class. Again, the Bills in the first round end up selecting tackle Kingsley Suamataia. We could end up going after a wide receiver here in Jermaine Burton. Let's do it. I think Jermaine Burton's a really good target and very, very underrated. One of my top 32 players in the class. At pick number 57 for the KC Chiefs, Wide receiver Jermaine Burton would have been great. I think Xavier Worthy is a very underrated option for this team. But defensive interior is, I mean, it takes priority. Byron Murphy, the second, is an elite pass rusher, super high upside, over 300 pounds. Just genuinely worth taking a swing on at pick 57. At pick 58, the Dallas Cowboys have already selected an edge rusher in Chop Robinson. At pick number 58, the options are probably going to be down to, again, Amari Smith's not coming out in this, Karan Ahmedjadjeh to learn for a year under, I would want to say Tyron Smith, or Bo Limmer. Could go after another one of those centers, but I might want to wait on that as well. Linebackers certainly in the mix. Again, defensive interior, you do have some dudes who could be certainly in the mix. I think that the best option would be to take the best tackle available. Karan is a second-round quality offensive tackle who needs about one more year of development before kicking out to tackle. I think the centers on the board do give me pause, except for Bo Limmer. And, Bo's looked at possibly as just more of a guard than a center. So I'm going to go Karan Ahmedjadjeh for the Cowboys, just to keep things interesting. I do know that it's a little bit rich, but I would have naturally wanted to trade down for that. But we don't get to have that option here in this draft. At pick 59 for the Cleveland Browns, finally back on the board. You could look at an edge rusher. Jonah Ellis is a phenomenal player. I doubt that he actually comes out because that's just what Utah dudes do. But, looking at other options that could benefit this team, I've always gone wide receiver for him. And again, I mean, Ladd McConkey, Xavier Worthy they do feel like the best possible options on this team. So we'll go with the same old boring pick. Sorry, Browns fans. It is what it is. Well, it could go safety here, but we're going to go Xavier Worthy out of Texas. A pick number 60 for the Detroit Lions. We went after a star edge rusher in the first round in Latu. And this is exactly why I pass on him. We could even go after one of my favorite players who, have they finally put him in? No. He is my number 23 player on my board, and Dwight McGlothern out of Arkansas. Max Melton will not be selected in this, but his red logo for Rutgers does fit with the red logo of Arkansas. He will certainly be coming out in this draft because he's going to be at the East-West Shrine Bowl. So going to be someone who I think will be a massive riser come the offseason. In Dwight McGlothern out of Arkansas going to Detroit. At pick number 61 for the Miami Dolphins, we went after center and Jackson Powers Johnson in round number 1. Could look at someone like Theo Johnson to be a dark horse, or Luke Lackey to pair up in this tight end core, but not over the moon about that idea personally. Would have been in the mood for Karan Ahmedjadjeh actually to be the understudy of Terran Armstead for a year, but I think going after Kalen Bullock and getting that second safety is just the proper value. At pick number 62 for the Philadelphia Eagles, we have already drafted an edge rusher. Did we already draft an edge rusher? We drafted Brian Thomas out of LSU. We have not drafted an edge rusher yet. We drafted a corner in Kamari Lassiter, as well as a wide receiver in Brian Thomas Jr. So the next position I will be targeting will most likely be edge rusher. You got Jonah Ellis here. He doesn't fit. That's my one issue with him. He doesn't fit. I'd be waiting one more round to get a defensive interior player, an edge player then. So let's try to find another position we could target. I do see the potential for Blake Fisher to be an understudy. Javon Foster, really underrated. I want to start bringing these guys back into the fold, but this team needs a linebacker. So we're going to give y'all exactly what you guys should be looking for, and that is a linebacker. And for me, I want to go after Michael Barrett here because he's 240, can actually be a Mike linebacker. I don't want another 230-pound dude. And Edrin Cooper's 230, Jeremiah Trotter's 230. Peyton Wilson could be such a beast. I love Peyton Wilson. Let's draft Peyton. I mean, I naturally think he should be a Washington Commander. So within proximity of the Commanders, the Eagles could say, hey, this guy's talent is incredible. Injuries have pushed him down. But just a really talented player. At pick number 63 for the San Francisco 49ers, Quinyon Mitchell's here. I'm going to probably take him 10 out of 10 times. We drafted a right tackle in the first, so Quinyon Mitchell goes to San Francisco. At pick number 64 and ending off the draft, the Baltimore Ravens are sitting here chilling, to be honest. First round, we took Troy Fautanu. And, with this pick, you could go corner. You could. Ennis Rakestraw, it's a very underrated player to target. Josh Newton as well. Where's the pass breakup stats here? I mean, I don't see where his pass breakups are in terms of this, but okay, forcing completions 10. I don't know if that's PBUs, but I don't know why they're having it look like this. Regardless, doesn't matter. You could go after a corner in Josh Newton, and it's Rakestraw, DJ James. Like, there's some good options still available here. Other positions you could look at, wide receiver. I think Alad McConkey wouldn't be actually a bad choice, but you'd just be running the risk of getting a little too small in that receiving core. I don't like that idea too much. Running back, you could always go after the best running back on the board. I haven't seen elite running backs in this class, but, it's always worth potentially taking a peek. Defensive line, I do know that there is a potential need for somebody like Brandon Dorless. I think Brandon Dorless feels like a Baltimore Raven. We're going to end off with Brandon Dorless. So that is going to be the video. Thank you so much for showing your support and love as always. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year. Shit, that's coming up too. See you on the far side.